Fuck.
Hey, Chris. Chris.
Fuck you.
Hello, everybody. Good morning or afternoon or evening, even.
Good morning, Tom. Good afternoon. Good evening. How's it going?
Well, it's not going too bad. How about you, buddy?
Not too bad. I guess I was going a little bit too slow at the start, and I guess you decided to start it up.
Well, you were dragging your feet there, and there's no time. There's no time for hesitation.
You're right. There's no time out.
There's no
Shit's
time
canceled.
out. That shit is canceled. It's done.
So how was your Father's Day?
Well, my Father's Day was all right. I went to a restaurant that was pretty nice. I went to a new place in a town up from me, and it was a very good experience. How was yours?
Surprisingly, I went to a restaurant too. Normally, I do the whole barbecue thing, but I figured this year take everyone out, which we did. It's not like taking my dad out to dinner, so it didn't really matter what we do. So barbecued Friday, did dinner at the house on Saturday. So why not just go out to dinner on Sunday?
Yeah, screw it. There's only so much time you could spend cooking before it's like, all right, that's enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Since we already did the barbecue that weekend, it's just, why not just do something a little bit different? Went to the casino, which was fun. And then we're like, let's just go to dinner.
Nice. What casino did you go to?
Mount Airy in the Poconos.
Ooh, the Poconos.
I'll tell you, I was playing, what's it called? Craps. And I really didn't know what I was doing. I had such a good roll that I feel I should have won hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And I won $35 because I didn't know what I was doing. And I'll tell you, I wish I knew how to play without being nervous, because I must have rolled the dice. I must have dice. What's dice?
Dice is plural, die is singular.
Right. So I must have rolled the dice at least 20 times before I hit a 7. And I'm assuming I should have won more money than I did, and I don't know why I didn't.
That's weird.
Yeah. But other than that, then we went out to dinner, and I have to say, the experience, the food was great. The service, terrible. Worst service ever. And I feel that since the world is reopening, service industry has gotten really bad. It was better during COVID. Now that it's over and everything's opening up again, you can just see people's faces why are you here?
Yeah. The service at the restaurant I went to was interesting. My dad was like, can I sub? Which it really wasn't a difficult request. It said right on the menu that you could sub any starch for any other starch. And his dinner came with mashed potatoes, and he was like, oh, can I sub this for steak fries? And the waitress was just flatly no. And not only did she just deny it, but she almost looked like she was offended by the request. And my dad was like, but it says on the menu. And she's like, yeah, I know. He was like, oh, well then, and my dad, he was just like, all right, well then you know what? I don't want anything. I don't want any starch. And she was like, well, it comes with mashed potatoes. She's like, yeah, no, I don't want them. So it was this weird standoff moment where I'm like, oh God, my dad's gonna get a flame broiled spit.
Oh my God, was she older or was she younger?
She was older. It was busy there. I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt in situations like that. It was fairly busy. I'm sure it was probably a busier day than, because it's a fairly new restaurant too. So I'm sure it was probably a little busier than normal there. I tried to be sympathetic. I tried to be nice to her when I ordered, but I don't know if that's necessarily received, or if and my dad wasn't being particularly difficult, but I wonder if just tainted the whole table, where she's just like, oh, that table's just a bunch of assholes. I don't know how it works.
I mean, that seems like a pretty reasonable substitution.
Oh yeah, no, it was.
I feel that everyone is just coming off a little extra entitled now that the world's open again. And I get it. We're getting used to a new norm of more people coming in.
I hear what you're saying. It is a busier time in terms of just restaurants and I think kind of everything in general. Now that people are coming back out again in droves, I think a lot of places are a lot of the staff at some places might not be used to dealing with the volume. So the volume, it can be kind of nerve wracking when there's a big volume of people coming in They all want stuff. And so I understand maybe tempers will be a little high for the summer when it's going to be, as we predicted, it's going to be a busy summer. And I still stand by. I think it's going to be a very, very busy summer, especially in the restaurant world. So it's going to be a little hectic.
I'd almost think, though, busy, more volume, more people coming in, that's a possibility to make a lot more tips. So I might as well do my best to try to be somewhat friendly or quick to get a better tip, unless there's a bunch of people who have not been going out and they're finally coming out and they're like, well, the restaurant should be happy that I'm even here, and they're not tipping. I've even give like the extra $20 when I first go to places now, just to be like, listen, here's $20. I'm going to tip very well, but just take this first 20 to understand that I'm not going to jip you. I'm going to at least start tipping you in the beginning. And it's like $20 is like nothing. It doesn't count anymore.
Yeah.
It's almost like, what do you want, 50? My bill might not even be 50. And you want 50? Like what's the amount of money you're supposed to give someone to at least get like half decent service now?
I feel like that's a kind of unique thing that I see you do, is slip the waiter or waitress money beforehand. And it's a smart idea. Don't get me wrong. I just don't see it a lot. So I think in terms of that, I don't know. I think if I were a waiter and somebody's tipping me $20 off the bat, like, here you go. This is for you. Just make sure, like, we have a decent experience or whatever. Like, I'm going to be extra attentive to that table. I mean, like, maybe it happens more often than I think, but I don't see that happening very often.
Yeah. And I would also think that in your mind, it's like, okay, I'm getting this $20 now. This is not going to go towards the bill tip. An extra $20, like, not going to deduct 20 off your 20% or more I'm about to give you later.
Maybe that's what they think, though.
Bonus 20. Maybe not think that, because usually the cheap people who aren't tipping aren't giving you $5 in the beginning. I mean, it'd be one thing if I'm like, here's $5, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I'm giving you 20. And sometimes
here's a
it's
nice
just
Lincoln with your name on it.
Yeah, right. Here's a couple of Georges for you.
Get yourself a coffee. And meanwhile, the coffee's free. Yeah.
And then most of the time when I'm given the 20, it starts out with just, it's me, my cousin, you. There's only like 3-4 of us when I do that. It's not like I'm with a crew of 7-8 people and I'm throwing the 20. Like if I do that, sometimes I give a little bit more. Like I had an event and I gave the guy $100 up front. Like, here, we're going to have like 30 people. Here's $100 just to get started. Make sure I always have a beer. Like that's my one requirement. Just make sure I always have a beer on me. Like, I don't want to have to come to you to get, guess what? I had to come get a beer. I thought that was the way to do it. Things are just changed. Like it's just, I don't want to be here. Whether you're going to give me money or not, I don't want to be here.
Well, I can't fault anybody for feeling that way, because one of the prevailing narratives during the pandemic was how important all the frontline workers and the essential workers, right? Essential workers are what keep this economy running and blah, 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 and everything else. And like all these people it was like, I feel like it was the sort of upper class's way of like rallying the lower class into working harder in more dangerous conditions. So like the fact that a lot of people didn't get any kind of a bonus or anything from it. I mean, there were some companies that did, like Home Depot, for example, gave all their people like some bump in pay for, hazardous.
It was probably bullshit. Hazard pay is bullshit.
Well,
I doubt it was enough.
It probably wasn't enough. And that's the thing. I think a lot of these people are probably on the heels of the pandemic are probably realizing like, hey, a lot of people just got to sit home all day and spend time with their family this whole time and like work from home. And they had it on easy street. They didn't necessarily care. And I think it makes a lot of those people who were essential workers kind of feel like they weren't necessarily essential, but more just like disposable, expendable.
I actually think if you really think about it, like deeming somebody not essential, it's actually really fucked up. You're not essential.
But you know what? I would argue that was all smoke and mirrors, because I think in the end, like deeming somebody an essential worker was really just code for like, hey, you're an expendable person and we can just find another warm body to fill like the assembly line or whatever, in the case that you contract COVID and die. So I would say that like to be a non-essential worker during that time was actually better because you got a fat check from the government every week. And I mean, maybe not a fat check, but you got a check from the government every week. You didn't have to do anything.
Fat enough to not want to go back to work.
Yeah, definitely. And so so there's two things. So I don't blame anybody who feels a little bit gypped from this whole experience, having worked the whole time and had no opportunity to like sort of take some time off and actually process the sort of pandemic that was going on. Because now you've got a workforce that's returning and people who have had adequate time to be home and process sort of the gravity of this whole thing on one hand. And on the other hand, I also don't fault anybody for not wanting to return to work after this, especially when, you see stories online of people returning to their office jobs now. And they're like, this is all bullshit. We proved during the pandemic that this was all bullshit and not necessary for me to come to the office. And yet here I am now mandated to return to this office. Why? When everything was running just as smoothly, if not smoother, during the pandemic. So I don't fault anybody for that.
Yeah, I actually think going back to work into an office, I believe a lot of these companies had their best years ever with people working from home. And the idea to force somebody to now come back, which seems to be the thing, people should be coming back to the office now. I have to tell you, I disagree with it. And I think companies trying to do that is just the way to be invasive again. And I'm sure they're getting pressure from the Port Authority, pressure from NJ Transit, pressure from all the subways, mass transit in general. Wow. I'm sure there's somebody that's getting in the mind of, well, we need to get money. That's why they're making these announcements. I mean, if people stop going into the city, stop taking, I'm using New York and New Jersey because that's what I know. But if people stopped using New Jersey Transit to go into Manhattan, using subways, people stopped using the LIR or the Amtrak, and what's the other one? Metro North to come into work. Clearly, that's a problem if the city's not taking all of that money. So I'm sure they're getting into the ears of some of the big companies in the cities that have 10,000 plus employees. You need to figure out how to get people to come back into work and actually come back into the office. So it's more than just the micromanagement thing. I guarantee you that this is more of a push from the government trying to get more money because they need the revenue. They need NJ Transit revenue. They need Metro North, Long Island Railroad, subway revenue.
Yeah. Even the bridges and stuff like that. They need that. They need people to cross those bridges. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point, right? And it's kind of like Monopoly, the person who owns all the utilities in Monopoly is a real son of a bitch, the railroad or something like that. And then it's like, oh, damn, like they own them all. You always get that one person who buys up all the utilities and the transportation to begin with. And then all of a sudden, then it's like, ooh, it's like $100. That's not bad. It's like, oh, but then I got to roll times like 5 or whatever. And then it's like, oh, man.
And on top of that, you're also probably boosting. And see, you think of these big companies, they're the people on the board. They're the ones who own the real estate in the cities. And if people were fleeing the cities, it fucks with the value. It brings it down because people don't want to go in. So now if you're forcing everybody to come back in, it's because you're thinking to yourself, it's not just having the micromanagement piece. It's, well, now people will go back to their apartments into Manhattan again because they have to come in and they don't want to commute from the single family that they decided to buy during this whole pandemic. So now they're going to be forced to come back. And then the apartments are going to sell again. And New York City is going to rise in value again because people are forced to come back.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, you have to think of it from like a leaseholder perspective, I guess. Like, yeah, there's probably a lot of companies who have a lot of real estate in New York City. It's probably a big part of their portfolios. And for it to be vacant for any amount of time is probably absolutely crippling to their portfolio. So, yeah, you've got.
I hope workers do rise a little bit and just say, you know what? Fuck you. We worked fine. If you really want me to come back, we need to work out a different package.
Yeah.
Because I was fine working from home. I got my stuff done. If you want me to now come into the office, pay. Maybe they do already pay for transportation in there, but that extra 2 hours of commuting to me is a waste.
Yeah.
I don't feel that it's necessary. We were able to strive. And let me tell you, the banks, they had their best year ever. So you're going to tell me that it's necessary to have these people come back? No, they can stay home. And if you're going to say, oh, we want to see your faces, we're a team, let's work together. No, that's bullshit.
That's all horseshit.
You don't fucking care. You're not a fucking team. It's we want to see what you're doing. We need to put money in the pockets of mass transit. We have to put money back into the market for real estate. I read an article. I wish I remember which I think it was Morgan Stanley. You know what? Let me look. I'm actually going on my LinkedIn because Jordan Belfort, that fucking asshole, he's the one who posted and it was like people should be going back to work. It's like
of course he
fuck
would.
you, asshole. You didn't work. You stole money. And for some reason, that asshole didn't get canceled. I don't know why he didn't get canceled. Dude, he stole like $200 million. He went to jail, and it's like, oh, well, he went to jail. He served his time. And supposed to pay $110 million. He's only paid like $12 million back, and his net worth is still $100 million.
Oh, yeah.
Sell me this pen. Hey, I'll sell you this pen. Shove it up Jordan Belfort's asshole. I'll give you free pens for life.
There you go. Yeah, he's kind of a scumbag, but you know what? He played the game right because he knew what to say afterwards. Because I mean, he's a con man at heart. He's going to be a con man forever, and he knew how to con his way back into the good graces of society at large by just saying whatever he had to say after he made all his money and everything else. And now he fights for the little guy. And it's like,
no, he doesn't fight for the little guy. He's fighting for stuff in his pocket. He's trying to make more money.
Yeah. I remember I watched an interview between him and Grant Cardone, and it was like they both hate each other, but Grant Cardone was being like a real jerk off during the interview. And it was like, God, like I can't root for either one of you. Like the best thing that had happened is just like the studio catches on fire.
So here it is. Morgan Stanley, chief to bankers. If you want New York City salary, you need to be in New York City, which means I guarantee you, if we looked at his real estate portfolio, it took a dive, and he's trying to find a way to raise his own personal real estate portfolio again by forcing people. Because if he makes that stand, it forces other big bankers to make the stand. And Jordan Belfort's thing is, this is a prime example what I'd have calling champagne vision with a beer work ethic. If someone at Stratton came into my boardroom asking me for a New York salary while working in the middle of nowhere, Montana, I'd fire them on the spot. First off, go fuck yourself, number one. But the elephant in the room that no one is addressing is that this past year has turned a big majority of our workforce into lazy and entitled individuals. The same worker who used to grind 40-plus hour weeks now can't muster working a mere 2 hours before scheduling a nap and a Netflix binge. Yet these same people are offended that their boss is asking them to come into the office that they agreed to work at when they got hired. We'll hit that in a second. The true audacity of these people to complain about their high-paying salaries when millions have lost their jobs over the course of the year. A message to those people: let's stop complaining and let's get back to work. All I'm saying here is we made it working from home, and everyone, especially the high-up bankers, made their money. So why break something that's actually working? I get there are some people that like to dick off and maybe they aren't doing their work, but manage them a little bit better. Maybe you didn't hire the right manager to manage a team appropriately to work from home. But it seems that if you compensate somebody enough, they will work just as hard at home, and they will appreciate those extra 2 hours they save in the morning and extra 2 hours they save at night. If I stole $200 million, it's easy to say something like that, right? So it doesn't matter what you say when you steal. Again, you steal $200 million and you make money by basically having people pay you every time you fucking talk. Like, that's a person that shouldn't have been given a second chance. That's a hill I'm willing to die on. Jordan Belfort should not have been given a second chance. I remember when The Wolf of Wall Street first came out. I was young. I was like 21 years old. I'm like, I want to be like that guy. Look at him. He's banging all these girls. He's doing drugs off titties. Like, he's doing everything. That's really cool. And then when you get older, you realize he stole $200 million.
Right, he stole all this money. He was basically just a drug addict and a degenerate. And like, you actually have to look pretty hard beyond like the whole entourage type, male power fantasy that was his life for a while to like actually find any real redeeming characteristics in him. But not to go like full on socialist here, because I've had people lately tell me that I sometimes sound like that. And I'm going to preface what I'm about to say next by saying that, like, okay, maybe it's a little more left leaning than what I would normally say. But like, in terms of, you want to talk about like solidarity, right? So one of the biggest things that the ruling class, right, the wealthy upper class of this country has going for it is that no matter what, right, politicians, CEOs, big time bankers, Jamie Dimons, and then the rich guys in general, like Jordan Belfort and whoever this guy is at Citibank, right? They have solidarity. They will all parrot each other's message, and they will all stand united against something that challenges the authority. And so you get schmucks like this guy from Morgan Stanley saying things like, oh, you got to come back to the office if you want, a New York salary, right? Because what? Otherwise they can't afford to pay you the New York salary. But then you get a schmuck like Jordan Belfort who just falls right in line, beating the same drum like, oh yeah, you got to go back to work. Like,
if somebody tried to go back to work and get a New York salary, but they didn't work in my office, I'd fire them.
And it's like, the ruling class in this country has more solidarity than the lower class ever will. That's what you need. You are much closer to, we're all much closer to the bottom than we are to the top. I think, there needs to be more solidarity from us, the people who greatly outnumber, the 1% in this country. I think there needs to be a lot more solidarity between us. We need, if we want to have any kind of like effective change in this country, we are the ones who need to get together. And, we need to challenge the politicians. We got to challenge the CEOs. We have to unite and understand that by doing that, like, yeah, there's going to be we have to forego some conveniences in the meantime. And that's sort of the insidious nature of big business in general, is to sort of ingratiate itself into society in a way where it becomes necessary. But, if we don't want to have another pandemic where, essential workers are expendable, we need to have a united front and be like, listen, I'm not going to order from Amazon. I'm not going to order from like Walmart or something like that. I'm not going to do these things and enable these companies to continue to make millions and millions of dollars off the backs of the 99% and then turn around and vilify the 99% and tell them that they're not working hard enough.
I was brainwashed a long time ago with the way like Jordan Belt, what he was selling. I bought it. And then I just realized there are people making much smaller mistakes that get really punished from life.
They're crucified.
Right? But you write the wrong thing on a Twitter account. Like you tweet something 20 years ago. Well, I don't know if Twitter was around 20 years, but like Kevin Hart's a great example. He wrote something homophobic over 10 years ago, and he almost lost his career. He didn't, which I would have really disagreed if he did. But there are other famous stars who just simply tweeted something and their career was done. This fucking asshole, and I will keep referring to Jordan Belfort as an asshole because that is what he is. No one's going to tell me he is not an asshole. He did not deserve to get a second chance. The fact that he got a second chance just goes to tell you that if he's going to tell you you can be a millionaire, we flush down the toilet everything bad that he's done because he's such a good salesman that he made you forget that he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And there are people who buy that. There are successful people that buy that. There are people who make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that buy his bullshit. He's the epitome, the bottom of the barrel, self-help, I want to be a millionaire. And I would think twice that if I go on people, like if I was going to do business with somebody and I found out that somebody was spending money to get life lessons from Jordan Belfort, I would not do business with them.
Me neither. Yeah, I wouldn't use that person.
And I'm going to be called a hater. I will be called a hater for that. Oh, you're just hating on him. Yeah, I am hating on him. You know why? Because if I sold $200 million from someone, I guarantee I'd be serving my full 20 years and no one would have made a movie about me.
Yeah, and rightfully so. He deserves to be hated on for that. Like the fact that he hasn't made any meaningful steps. I mean, because let's be honest, 12 million versus 200 million is a big difference. The fact that he hasn't really made any meaningful steps towards like any kind of retribution is terrible. then that makes him a deplorable person.
It does. Now, I will say there probably are some lazy people. And unfortunately, well, or fortunately, I don't know what to think about it. The handouts during the pandemic were greater than what some employers are willing to pay people. So you mean to I can't say like, oh, they're being lazy. It's kind of the smart move. You get paid to do nothing. You get more money to do nothing, where you can go home and maybe learn a skill on the computer, read some books. I mean, I hope people who were getting paid not doing anything did advance a skill of some sort rather than jerk off all day. I mean, you can jerk off periodically during the day, but not all day. I mean, I hope that's what they did. But if I'm getting $900 a week compared to minimum wage, and let's just say, and I'm sure this is more than some places, if minimum wage is $10 an hour, that's $400 a week. That's going to get taxed. I'm going to get less money to work 40 hours than collect unemployment. Why would I do that? It's like, hey, millionaire, do you want to invest $1 million and make 2% on your money with the same amount of risk of making 8% on your money? What are you going to do instead? Make your choice. Like, it's a business decision. Even if the uneducated decided to take the unemployment over them working at a cashier position, giving $10 an hour, they're going to choose to not work it and stay home. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You de-incentivized working, which then it also makes you think, hey, employers, maybe you do need to pay a little bit more.
Yeah, money is definitely important. And I think, it's kind of I want to touch on a point you brought up there. It's a double-edged sword, right? With the whole personal advancement during the pandemic, right? I hope on sort of a human level that people were able to find a nice creative outlet or a nice, productive outlet for their time during the pandemic. However, I also don't fault anybody if they didn't have the means to do that, or they were just simply worried because it was a fucking pandemic, And the reason I say that is because I saw on Twitter, this. It was an interview question for a job interview, and one of the questions was, how did you use your time off during the pandemic as a time for personal growth? And it had like a little, a couple lines afterwards where you could write in a description. And it's like, if you think that the time off during the pandemic should be like commodified somehow, that is where you start to get into like capitalist dystopia area, because that's not okay to ask somebody in a way where like you're going to make them feel demeaned if they weren't doing anything during the pandemic. That's shitty. I hope everybody was on a personal level, but like as a business, like basically prompt somebody to have a response like that. That's fucking terrible.
I guess you're right if you're forcing someone to give a response. And what I'm saying is there are going to be people who did nothing, but if you had the means to do something, hopefully you did. It's having the means. I mean, and I'm not just talking about learning a new skill, like going outside and enjoying nature, going outside and fixing something that you prolonged doing for the past 5 years because you just didn't have the time before. Time flew by. It's over. We're at the point where it's recovery mode and it's over. So now with that other unemployment coming to an end, which I guess is September. I mean, let's just assume some of the states are like, all the states are just have that extra $300, because I think for $300, people are not running back to work anyway. But because unemployment is not forever. It's not like you can't get a job and you just continue getting unemployment. Like, there's going to be a point where it's zero that you're getting. So then you have to go back to work. And I think what's really sad is employers are hedging on that. And they're like, we can handle having difficulty with employees because they're going to have to come back anyway and take this $10 an hour.
Right.
And that's really sad.
Right. And that's where class solidarity comes in, and people have to get together and take a stand and say, no, we're not going to take these jobs. Like, we're not going to take jobs that are $10 an hour and things like that. The pressure.
So do you think right now we're taking a stand? Do you think
No.
this is taking a stand right now, or is this not taking a stand? Because there are a lot of people needing jobs right now.
There's a lot of people needing jobs, and there's a lot of people refusing not to go to work. And I think it's a good start. But in terms of actually like taking a stand, I don't think there's enough class consciousness in this country to just in general to actually affect any kind of meaningful change. I think people are too disillusioned, and I definitely think it's getting better, but I don't think we're at a point yet where people realize, that like, the average person likes to think like, oh, well, at least I'm not, working this job or that job, or, at least I'm not, at least I'm not minimum wage or anything like that. But the bottom line is, like, no matter what skills you have or anything, like, you're probably not being fairly valued at whatever job you have. And you have a lot more in common with the person who works minimum wage than you do with the owner of the company. It takes a lot for people to realize that, I think, though.
Yeah. And the problem is that all the companies that did strive during this, they're going to just try to, we said it before, they're just going to try to beat 2020.
Yeah.
And you don't beat a year by giving people more money. I mean, I think what restaurants should have done, and listen, I don't have any restaurant experience, but they're hiring now bottom of the barrel servers from what I've seen. Let me tell you a quick story and why I say bottom of the barrel. So I went to a restaurant in Montclair, New Jersey, and I was with 5 or 6 people. I ordered a Mick Ultra, my normal, and I got it. It was warm. I'm like, not cold beer. I mean, like, this sucks already. So I say, hey, could you, and I gave him the $20 too, like right in the beginning, because I'm like, you know what, this guy looks lazy. So anywho, I gave him the $20 already, and I'm like, always Mick Ultra, please. Got the first Mick Ultra, and I go, buddy, this is like warm. And I said it nicely. I didn't call him buddy. I'm like, dude, this is warm. Could you do me a favor? And can you throw can you throw them on ice? Throw them in a bucket of ice or something along those lines. Yeah. And so he comes back 2 minutes later with a bucket of ice and puts my open Mick Ultra in the bucket of ice. And I look at him, I'm like, I'm not that much of an asshole that I need to have my open bottle of Mick Ultra in a bucket of ice. I meant, could you ask the bartender to take like a 12-pack of Mick Ultra and put them in ice?
Oh, God.
So I don't know why that's what happened. Scott says, Chris, maybe somebody asked for that before. I'm like, yeah, but that just didn't make any sense. So that's what I mean by bottom of the barrel servers. Like, they're getting people who I guess have to work. Maybe their unemployment's out or they quit and they're like, oh, well, I actually need money. And these restaurants don't care. And what I think they should have done was, yes, put it on the consumer like me, did a brand new menu. I know new menus cost money, but then raise the prices of some of the food. And I know that comes down to us, but I'm talking like maybe $1 here, $1 there, and give their servers a little bit more money and just put it on. I mean, that's what it ultimately comes down to. I mean, nobody complains when Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks raises their coffee prices 50 cents, or maybe people do, but I think it's just, but they're still buying the coffee. Do you really think there's going to be someone that goes, oh, well, this hamburger went from $13 to $14. I'm not coming back. If $1 breaks you, then you shouldn't be going out to eat.
Right. You probably weren't a valuable customer to begin with if that's, your line in the sand.
And I think people get it. Unless there are other people that have it, that have been home for 10 years. And for some reason, they're now deciding to come out because, oh, maybe the world is cleaner now, which is certainly not. Because, dude, the same day, so this was like the first week when it all opened. I went to the bathroom, I washed my hands. There was another guy in the bathroom, and he went to the sink and he turned the sink on, and all he did was wash the tip of his middle finger and the tip of his thumb. That was it. He ran it under water. And I really wanted to I thought about it. Like, maybe if I had one more beer, I would have, but I really want to be like, is your prick that small that you only need to wash the tip of your finger? He's got to hold it with
2 fingers like tweezers.
And it was like one of those things. After he did it, like and he just like flicked his fingers to get the water off. I'm just like, that's great. This is what it's coming back to. People are people are
And
dirty.
that guy probably then went out
and
to
this
use
is
the
why
ATM or something, and it's like, oh boy.
No, I actually watched him. He put his arm around the girl. I'm like, well, that sucks.
That girl's got a piss shoulder now.
Yeah. People are dirty, man. This is why we had a pandemic in the first place, because of people like that who don't wash their hands after they take a leak, and which it really goes to show you there are so many people who are just dirty.
Yeah. People are gross. That's why I kind of I hope that one thing that does remain with this. I mean, like, obviously it's good that people are going out, and it's good that people are now going to be serving people in person. They're going to get more tips. Things work out that way. And regardless of my beef with the restaurant industry in terms of like paying people an appropriate wage for the service they perform, like, it's good that people are getting tips, but I also hope that the idea of like food delivery and everything, I hope that the prices don't go up to compensate for maybe the reduction in volume. But like, I hope it remains kind of a thing now where it's like, really it's looked at as a, viable alternative to going out, because I think that ordering food to go and having it delivered to you is really good.
I would make an assumption that the future of restaurants, and maybe not exquisite fine dining, but I'm talking restaurants that are higher caliber, I would say, where like, a beer's $6-7 and a sandwich is $17-18. You know how Applebee's has that little thing on the table where you can actually order and then a runner just brings out your food? The way that this is all going is that restaurants and the owners are eventually going to do a system where they restructure the inside of their restaurant and they make it nicer, like a nicer tablet on the table. You can order your drinks. There maybe will just be one runner that brings it out, where they're maybe making, we'll call it $20 an hour. Hey, you don't have to tip here. And they hire one or two people just to run the food out. But you're basically putting in your own order. You're putting in your special requests on the tablet. Because think about it, there's going to be a generation that dies soon.
Yeah.
Right? And so the future is everybody knows how to work a smartphone or a tablet. We're going to get rid of the servers. And then they're going to just hire two people at $20 an hour. They're happy. They make their $20 an hour. And they're just going to run drinks, serve food. You have a problem, you hit something on the tablet, one of them come over, they fix it. And now it gets rid of the tips.
I think it's very naive to think that those people would make $20 an hour and that they wouldn't just be surviving on tips the same way a waiter, now, like a server now does. I think the worst parts of the industry are going to stay there. And then, like you said, I agree. I think eventually it's going to become more normalized to have the sort of digital option where you just order off the tablet or anything else. And like, slowly the server becomes obsolete until you just have the runner. But I also think that restaurants, if they can, are going to try to force it on you to tip the runner to pay them appropriately, because I don't see restaurants parting with $20 an hour very easily.
Or what they might do is slip in like they put it on the menu and they put like there's going to be a $15 service fee on every bill rather than the tip. It's just a service fee. You're still required to tip, but they're adding $15 on your check. So on top of tipping, they're taking a service charge,
half of which will go to the restaurant.
It all comes back to us. Yeah, I'm sure it will. I mean, dude, I know there are restaurant owners who want to be owners, and I guarantee you there are some wait staff that's making more money in tips in one night than the restaurant owner is putting in his pocket. And I guarantee you they're being dicks about it to the wait staff. You guys make more money than me tonight. Brr, 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 brr. Like, but listen, buddy, you decided to open up a restaurant and you decided not to hear it from anybody. You are the boss. Right. So you don't get demanded to do anything. So we have to take your shit and listen, restaurant owners, cooks, your food's great. I'm sure you're nice behind closed doors, but you're not the nicest people. Like, to your workers.
Some aren't.
Like you
I'm
do
sure,
treat your
I'm
work.
sure there are
Some
some
are.
that are
Some are.
okay, but yeah, some of them are definitely not.
That's what happens when you're the owner. You don't have to deal with you because you wouldn't deal with you. So when they get paid a little bit extra, it's okay because they're working for you. You're not paying them.
Right. And the funny thing about that is, the conservative side of the argument, especially when as it pertains to like tipping and just wait staff wages in general, they'll say, oh, well, they agreed to that job. So if they agreed to that job, then, they should they should take whatever pay they agreed to take. So if that's like $1 an hour or whatever, and then they survive on tips, then that was the agreement that was made, and they work there of their own volition, right? And that's I feel like that argument is incredibly facile because you're totally downplaying the power dynamic that comes into owning a business versus somebody who needs a job and is working at your business out of necessity. But even if we discount that for the moment and we just talk about in terms of sheer agreement here, if the wait staff can be held accountable for agreeing to work there and get whatever wages they make, the owner should also be held accountable for agreeing to hire the wait staff to make wages. So if a restaurant owner is ever going to say something like, oh yeah, you guys made more than me tonight, like, well, that was part of the agreement there, bud. Like I get it. Like, I'm not trying to totally vilify any kind of owner either, because obviously the owner takes on the risk of having the business in the first place. So yes, I do think that risk should come with some form of monetary compensation that maybe even is bigger than anybody else at the business. Sure. Okay. Because that risk is not just easily downplayed. And I do think that at the end of the day should be rewarded somehow. But
they get the benefit of writing everything off. On top of yes, they get to write everything off. And as a W-2 employee, I don't get to write anything off. I don't get to write off my commute. I don't get to write off my car. I don't get to write off gas. I don't get to write off mileage. I don't get to write off my cell phone. I don't get to write off my computer. I don't get to write off anything.
Sure. So, I mean, there is sort of a balance there of things, and whether or not it's an actually like equal balance is debatable. But what I'm saying is, like, I'm not trying to just vilify owners as a whole here. But what I am saying is that, like, if the wait staff can be held accountable to have agreed to something and have to uphold their end of an agreement, then the owner should have to uphold their end of the agreement as well. And if you're going to look at it one way, you can't pick and choose which side of the argument you're on at any given time, in favor of how it benefits you. Like, there are just times in any agreement where, things are going to be better for you than they are for the other party. And then sometimes things are going to be better for the other party than they are for you. And that's just how it is.
You know what actually gets everyone in terms of you agreed to work here? Because they add that one little line and other duties assigned that may not be outlined in this agreement. That piece right there is what ends up screwing everything up, in my opinion. Because yes, they laid out their job, you agreed to it, but that line basically means that, well, if they tell me to clean a toilet, even though I'm supposed to be an accountant,
right,
that's another duty assigned. I believe that by that piece being in there, it's almost like it should open up negotiation. I actually think that line should be removed from all job offers. If I became president of the United States, I would say any W-2 employee, you cannot add that line there.
Right, because that line is basically there as like a catch-all. It's like it absolves the manager of giving you a duty that is beneath your pay grade.
Yeah, or something that they don't feel like doing. I don't feel like taking out the garbage today. Hey, Chris, take out the garbage.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, well, no, other duties assigned.
Hey, Chris, rub my feet. No, other duties assigned.
I mean, I guess the restaurant world is just the start of it, because I know that they are struggling, and it sucks because I do like going out. I do tip, but I guess at the same time, there's a lot of people who like to go out, and I'm sure they leave garbage, and it's just, well, you shouldn't be out in the first place. Like, because listen, we worked for the same guy who walked around like he was a millionaire, and he left 10%. And I actually should have taken that as a clear sign that this guy's a cheap motherfucker because he left 10% on the day that I met him, and I ignored it. But I'm like, wow, he only left 10%.
Yeah.
And like it's stuck in my head, and I'm like, he always left 10%. He's a 10%er. He's a 10% man. Like like everyone, if you're leaving 10% as a tip and you're listening to this, stop listening to the show. Don't leave 10%.
Yeah, we don't want any viewers who are 10% tippers. That's
clearly, if we're ever trying to sell anything on here, you're not going to buy it.
Yeah, just in general. Yeah, if you're a 10% tipper, I mean, like, it's one thing if you know if the wait staff was extraordinarily rude to you or taking out their bad day or something. Like I still wouldn't do it myself, but I could at least understand. But if you're every time you go out like, oh yeah, and 10% is standard, like, no, it's not, you dickhead. Like,
there was one time I did not tip, and I was in high school. My ex-girlfriend was a vegan, and she ordered some sort of pasta dish, and there was chicken in there. And I called the guy over, and I'm like, dude, listen, I did say 3 times, no chicken, no chicken, no chicken. Can you please take this back? We need a new one with no chicken. I shit you not, dude. They just removed the pieces of chicken from there because we found another piece. They found another piece of chicken in there, and I'm like, well, this is uncalled for. Like, I'm like, I'm gonna pay for mine, and we're gonna get out of here. And the guy actually gave me a hard time about with the chicken. I'm like, this is a problem. I'm like, I told you. And I think because he thought we were kids, like it didn't matter. But it's just like, no, fuck you. And I think you even know who it is. It was that the guy who always looked like he was coked up in the coyote place.
That guy spilled a whole bowl of soup on me when I was sitting in, because I was with my ex-girlfriend at that place, and he spilled a whole bowl of soup on me when he was walking past. And I was like, holy shit, you know. And so I smelled like French onion soup the rest of the day. But the guy was like, yeah, come with me. And he's like yelling at me. He's like, come on. So I like run out of the booth and I follow him, and he grabs like the bar napkins and he's like dabbing my shirt. And I was like, dude, just stop. Like, and he's like, listen, all right, look, it's really busy here. I'm sorry. Okay, go sit down. It was like, dude, what? How am I getting yelled at because you spilled soup on me?
Do you think if he's listening to this and he's like, oh, that's me?
I don't think he even has the ability to sit still long enough to listen to a podcast.
Yeah, you guys are too long. I couldn't even handle that 42-minute Father's Day special.
So I'm going to put on Jordan Belfort instead.
Oh, I can use this pen. If I take the ink out, I can snort my Coke with it. This is one thing I learned from Jordan Belfort. Do Coke.
Jordan Belfort's like, all right, sell me this pen. And the guy's like, if you take the ink cartridge out, you can do Coke with it. And Jordan Belfort's like, oh, let's go. I'm sold.
I'm gonna buy them all. Oh my God. Dude, I actually think you just sold Jordan Belfort a pen.
Yeah, maybe. That'd probably entice Jordan Belfort to buy. Shit, that'd probably entice all of them to buy, because Gary Vaynerchuk too looks like he's a cokehead. All you got to do is curse at Gary Vaynerchuk to get him to buy the pen. Like, Gary Vaynerchuk's like,
this fucking pen is really fucking good.
Why didn't you fucking say so?
I'll take a whole fucking box.
Let's rip some fat fucking lines of Bolivian marching powder out of this son of a bitch. Again, I'm somebody, I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt. I can't fault anybody for coming up with that idea and doing it, right? But there is absolutely a point, and what that point is, I don't know. I think it's different for every person, but there's absolutely a point where you go from just monetizing your own sort of enigmatic personality to exploiting people. And that is when it's too far. And I don't even know that it's necessarily a threshold that you cross consciously when you're one of those people. I mean, I truthfully, I don't think that the likes of those people do anything sort of like really consciously and have any sort of existential thought outside of like, how can I get more, you know, but there's got to be a point where like you turn around and you look back and you're like, holy shit. Like, I've got kind of a cult amassing here, and like, maybe I should throw a little bit of water on the flames. Like, hey, just so you know, like, I'm not a financial expert, and results may vary type thing, but I don't know. Maybe that's not a thought that any of those guys have.
But these people would not be successful if everyone that came to their seminars actually succeeded, because you have to assume that once you hit a level of success, well, I don't need it anymore. That's why I actually believe in therapy over these seminars, because therapy comes to a conclusion. Like once you find yourself or solve your own problem, the therapist, I do believe, says, well, I think we can end our sessions. Whereas you don't see any of these people saying you don't have to come anymore. They want to continue to collecting your money, whether you're successful or not. You could fail 1,000 times and they're going to say, well, you'll succeed the 1,001st time.
Yeah.
But then you don't. They're always going to collect that check. They're always going to take it. Anything like that. That's why I think that if somebody really, really wants to do it, I think they should get a therapist instead. I mean, I'm in the wrong industry to say that, but I personally, I respect, just do, it's your own money. You do what you got to do that helps you. But I think a majority of these people could have done it on their own. When it came to, I think if you become a successful person, Jordan Belfort has nothing to do with it. You did it. Now, maybe his way of getting into your head where it says, well, if you could fuck over 10 people and make $100 million, well, I hope you fuck over those 10 people, because I feel like he would give you that advice that if you could find a way to take advantage of 100 people and maybe take 10,000 a piece, well, that's how you become a millionaire. Do it. I feel like he would actually give that advice still.
Yeah, behind closed doors, I bet he would. Jim Cramer, who's supposed to be the people's investor, right? And I mean, don't get me wrong. There's for the most part, Jim Cramer's kind of harmless. Like he's just excitable and he just is who he is, and he just gives frenzied stock picks and whatever. But even Jim Cramer, and Jon Stewart brought this to light when he and Jim Cramer had their argument. Even Jim Cramer behind closed doors was willing to say like, oh yeah, you can pump and dump stocks. And I find it to be, very fulfilling. And, it's a very rewarding opportunity. And, when you're in a place to manipulate the market, you should. And he's on video saying this, and it's like, what the hell? And, Party almost wants to think like he's being facetious. He doesn't really mean that. But there is, like, you'd be hard pressed to find an ounce of sarcasm in his voice or in his demeanor when he says it. And it's like, holy shit. Like, man, maybe he's not kidding, and it's worrisome.
It's like if you got a tip on a horse and the horse is going to win the race. And let's just say, dude, it's 99.99999% that horse is going to win. You're not going to tell the world that horse is going to win, because if you told the world that you're 99.999% sure that horse is going to win, you're not going to win any money, because everyone is going to bet
that horse winning are going to go way
so
down.
why am I going to give you this real secrets? Jordan Belfort opening up his mouth, bringing up and agreeing with the Morgan Stanley guy. I'm sure it all comes down to real estate and trying to boom the market again, which it is, I just think that people want to work from home. They should have the option to work from home. And the whole idea of you want New York City pay, you got to come into New York City. No, the reason why you're paying me this money is because I'm good at my job. And if you're going to try to say that it's because I need to be in the city, then I'm sure I can probably put my skills to another bank that's willing to let me work from home.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
And I'm sure we're totally going to get mixed thoughts on that. I just think people can work from home, and I think there's more of an ulterior motive to the forcing people to go back into the cities.
And that's what I was saying from the beginning. I think there is a level of control to it, but I also agree with you. I think there is a monetary investment in cities that needs to be recouped. And the way that it is recouped is by either by guilt or by just straight up denying people salaries that they were getting before. But there needs to be a coercion involved to get people back into the cities physically.
Yeah, because these banks have real estate portfolios. They're managing clients' money that have real estate portfolios. So if one starts pushing people to come back in, other people are going to start pushing their employees to come back in, and it just starts the trend of, all right, well now the real estate portfolio is getting good again. I mean, dude, 3 months from now, we're going to see New York City real estate on the rise again.
Yeah, and all the people who moved away are going to start trickling back, maybe. That'd be interesting. Jordan Belfort also thinks sales is a learned skill.
I think you can learn to sell. It's about comfort and understanding what you're selling. I can't sell something I don't believe in, right? I tried to sell search engine optimization once, and I'll tell you, I didn't understand what the fuck I was selling. I didn't know what pay-per-click advertising was. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to sell it. Right now, I personally don't believe I sell mortgages either. I feel like I kind of let my knowledge sell the loan, because once I need to sell a mortgage, I'm like kind of at a question mark, because why am I what am I selling you on? I'm selling you on a rate. Yeah, I'll get you the lowest rate. Like, I can do it. I don't know. I don't really think I'm selling mortgages, but I feel like selling comes from knowledge of the product and believing in what you're selling. If you don't believe in what you're selling, I couldn't sell life insurance. I'd have a very hard time selling life insurance. I believe in life insurance, but I don't know if I could necessarily sell life insurance. I think I'd have a hard time doing it, because I'm like,
yeah. I mean, there's a certain amount of, I guess, just stigma in general. I feel that way about car salesmen, right? I could never do a car salesman job, and so for as much as I'm willing to talk shit about the used car salesman or anything like that, ultimately they do have my respect, because I could never do it. If I were selling somebody a car that I didn't like let's say it was my job to try and sell somebody a PT Cruiser or something, I'd be like, yeah, listen, man, like, this car sucks. I don't know. Like, I would have a very, very hard time trying to find the positive. Like, oh yeah, have you ever wanted a car that kind of looks like a hearse? Like, because guess what, man, I got one. I would have a really hard time trying to focus on put a positive spin on that.
I will say with car sales though, you're there and they have a system of, you get somebody that walks in, you get a hot lead that's literally given to you. So as a car salesman, you're not cold selling. You actually have a hot lead there. So I think the fear of car sales is, how am I going to get people in? The people do come there. I mean, you were at Ford there. You saw how many people came in on a daily basis there. The leads are given to you. Now, obviously, if you don't have a personality, or you're like, I am Tommy, like that's a problem. But like, you have a personality, you'd be like, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. What are you interested in? And then you go from there. And then it's about the follow-up too, because now listen, there's going to be people like me. When I go to a Mercedes dealership, I just want to look around. I know I'm not buying anything. And I usually, when I went to the Mercedes dealership that one time, I literally looked at the guy and I'm like, I'm not buying anything. I'm literally just looking because I do need a new car, but I'm most likely going to end up with a Nissan Pathfinder, just because, you know what? My uncle knows how to negotiate the deal. The one thing I think with car sales where we have like these bad experiences is that like you can negotiate. And then obviously you're working the opposite direction of the salesperson, right? Like, they want to get you the highest price and you want to negotiate to the lowest price, and they want to sell you all these extras. So that's where the real sales thing comes in.
Floor, right? But where it's like, okay, like, I can't go any lower than this. And like, truth be told, a lot of times they can go way lower than that, but it's all about just like your resolve and like your sort of like determination of being like, yeah, okay, this is the lowest I can go. Right. That I feel like is the biggest determination of what makes a successful car salesman versus what doesn't.
But I think you could do sales as long as you know your product, have knowledge of your product, and actually believe in your product. I think that's why I do very well on the mortgage side, because like, I know every person that I get is getting the best deal. And I do personally believe they go anywhere else, they're getting fucked. That's a hill I will die on. And if somebody negotiates a better deal with someone else, I will beat it. Obviously, the industry has money, but I give everyone a relatively good deal. If you want to get something better, actually find something better, which is pretty difficult to do. I like giving people good deals because I've seen people get horrendous deals.
Remember,
and I feel
one
bad for
one
them.
of the things I had to do when and I don't know if you had to do it too, but when we worked for our ex-boss was one of the things we had to sell was credit repair. And that was something that like I had a tough time selling that because like yes, I believed in the product to a point, but I also didn't know what necessarily the product entailed. So when people would grill me for details, there was a lot of evasion involved. And I feel like that's a tough sell when you've got to skirt around a lot of points. That's not easy to try and that's not easy to not know and then have to sort of tap dance around in an artful way where it's sort of demonstrated as like, oh, don't worry about it. like, because ultimately anytime you're selling something, right, it's all peace of mind, right? So it's like, how do I give somebody peace of mind when I'm not giving them any details? And there's an art form to that because I know people who are salesmen who are really good at that. And you'll walk away from the exchange and be like, I feel better, but I don't think I actually know anything about what I was just sold. And like, I got to give people like that credit because like that is an art, and whether or not it's a learned skill, I don't know, but I think there is an art involved in selling something that you don't necessarily know about or something you don't necessarily believe in. So to sell something you do believe in is, I think that's an honorable trait.
Yeah, it's the Jordan Belfort effect. He sells a pen that doesn't even write, and yet you're thinking that you're going to have a pen that writes forever.
And then he uses the money that he got from you buying the pen that doesn't work to buy a pen that writes, and then he just writes himself a check with your checks.
Well, there is a skill to sales. But I do think sales comes from what I'd like to hope is knowledge and belief of the product. If there are people that can sell something that is truly terrible and they wouldn't buy it themselves, then maybe sales isn't a skill and sales is ultimately a grimy fucking action. There are people who originate mortgages. They work for banks and they come to our company to do their own mortgage because they know their bank charges too much. I mean, how do you sell your loans? Because they're obviously making more money than we do. Listen, it's a money thing. Like we make less money than banks do. But when it comes to selling the bank product, you can sell that to other people, but yet you won't use your own product. So I find that fucked up. Like that's just how I am. So like you'll come to us to do your loan, but you'll sell loans through your bank, but you won't even take a loan from your bank because it's too expensive. I have a problem with that. Like that's where it's just like maybe you know what? Maybe I'm just a terrible fucking salesman, man, because I couldn't sell bank rates because I don't want to sell bank rates. I want to sell wholesale broker rates. I don't want to take advantage of people and make a lot of money that way. I'd rather do double the amount of origination and make less per deal, but at least I can go to sleep at night knowing, well, those people got a better deal. I mean, because then what? Oh, well, I did half the amount of deals. I made the same amount of money, obviously less work, but now I'm going to go get my own mortgage. Yeah. Well, let me go find a broker.
I definitely think there is an aspect of going to sleep at night. And I think, you know, sales is tough because a lot of it is commission based, and I feel like when there's commission on the line, especially like you know, just because I'm familiar with the industry, car sales, right? Car salesmen are mostly commission. They make a very low base salary, and I don't know if they have to pay it back or anything like that, but I know they make a very, very low base salary, and then they make commission on top of that. And like when it comes to like very commission heavy sales like that, you almost have to subdue a little bit of empathy that you might have for the prospective buyer, because it's sort of you pitted against them. Like, who's going to eat? Are you going to eat, or is the buyer going to eat? And like,
yeah, but you've never seen a Mercedes salesman driving
no, because I feel like that's a brand consciousness thing, though. They'd probably not appreciate that.
But now at the same time, you may not see somebody that sells Ferraris come to work in a Ferrari, though. You sell Fords, you're most likely driving a Ford. You're not gonna drive into work in a Nissan. If you do that, right. It's a weird thing, right? Like, hey, car salesman, so why do I want this Ford and yet you drove a Nissan? Well, I mean, that's an awkward conversation to have. I almost think when anyone goes for a mortgage, they should almost ask their mortgage broker, "Oh, do you own houses?" and make it a conversation. Oh,
Sure.
did you go through your bank or did you go somewhere else? And I think that's a question that all people should ask their loan officers. Who did your loan? And then let them say themselves and be like, "Oh, can you show me your CD? Can you show me your closing disclosure?" I would love ask your loan officer who did their loan when they bought their house.
Yeah.
Did they do it? And then if they didn't, ask them why. I think that's a legal thing for me to say. I won't shit talk anyone, but I will say ask your loan officer.
Watch every loan officer
your
like
mortgage.
just gets together, like every loan officer in the tri-state area just gets together, and then whenever a buyer asks them that, they're like, "Oh, it was a private sale."
Yeah, right.
Where'd you get the cash to do that? Don't worry. I had 10 members of my family give me a gift.
But I guess when you rob people, you're right. Selling is not a skill. I mean, I could tell anyone this pen, listen, because obviously if you're robbing people, you're lying to them. So he lied to people. He sold them on a dream. This pen right here, your fingertips are going to get moisturized while you write. Okay. They're going to feel great. Your hands will never age. In fact, between paragraphs, they rub you out quick too. Like this pen is everything. It is a Swiss Army knife pen. It does everything. It's super smooth. When you run your hand across the ink, you don't smear the ink. You get no ink on your hands. The pen does it all. There's no other pen like this at this price. And what's really awesome about this pen, if you buy one, you get two free. It's a great pen and it'll do everything. So obviously I lied just now because the pen's not going to jerk you off. And most likely after a little bit, the ink might smear, but
God,
you
I'm
bought
looking
it,
at Jordan Belfort,
and then I'll deal with the bullshit later.
Oh God. It's just nonstop.
What does it say?
Fall 7 times, but get up 8. When I was going through hell, I kept going. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. If you want results, then work like you want them. Oh, God.
Listen, everyone, wake up. Get up early. Set an alarm. Don't have that last shot. You can do it yourself by not listening to that fucking asshole. He should be canceled. I am making a calling for him to get canceled again. You're gonna cancel people for writing stupid stuff. He stole money. I don't care if he served 4 years out of his 20 years in prison. It doesn't matter. He does not deserve a second chance for ruining lives. Like, we're not talking one life. We're not talking 2. We're talking probably a lot more than we think. Like, you ruin somebody's life. I really think that second chance thing needs to, it's like murder. You murder someone, you don't get a second chance. I think financial murder is just as bad as physical murder. You could financially kill someone, and to me, it's just as bad as killing someone. You can ruin families. People get divorced. I mean, think about how many husband and wives got a divorce because the husband or the wife thought, "Oh my God, this sounds great. This is a great investment. I'm going to put my life savings in there." Years later, we have nothing. And what are we going to say? Well, it was the people's fault for believing in that investment. I think that's what a lot of people do. Come back and say, like, "Well,
here's another one.
Risk."
A man who wants to lead the orchestra must turn his back on the crowd. Like that just hurts me.
I don't think he made that up. There's got to be somebody else.
Second ain't nothing like
point.
the first. You got to make it count. Okay. No bullshit, no excuses. I was a drug addict, and that's why I robbed everybody. What a fucking asshole. Oh my God. Let's see. Yacht parties, and it's just a picture of him on a yacht. Because of course he's on a yacht. What about all the people he fucking robbed? They're not on yachts. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Oh boy. Hi, my name is Jordan, and I'm a capitalist. Well, at least there's one honest tweet among all the bullshit. Ugh. I'm a capitalist, as in he tweets so fucking often.
Oh God, trying to stay relevant. I mean, I guess that's what we're supposed to do. We're constantly supposed to say things. Why can't he tweet something that's not appropriate so that he can get canceled again? I'm sure it's just like, I know what not to. Why is he a smart tweeter compared to other people who
Wow.
should be smart at tweeting.
He's a volume guy. Jordan Belfort says that sales is a required skill. Then he's basically saying that like you need to be able to sell everything in any walk of life, and that plays into the whole idea that like empathy is not a required skill. Then by that metric, in Jordan Belfort's world, empathy is not a required skill, and that means that like, you know, if you're going to be selling everything in every walk of life, that it just lends itself to a capitalist dystopia where people are just there and they're just objects with money in their pockets. And your sole goal in life is to separate them from the money in their pockets. And I think, you know, that's a horrible way of looking at things. And I don't think that's a good way to look at life or humanity in general. So
I agree.
You know, my whole take on this kind of entrepreneur culture in general that's happening where you know, you're going to be the one, you know, if you sign up for this class, like 300 people could sign up for this class. And obviously all 300 of those people aren't going to be, you know, millionaires, except it's not even 300. It's more like thousands of people sign up for these seminars and everything else. And the idea that you're going to be the one who makes it, like, that's exactly what every single person in that audience thinks. And anytime you're in a position like that, where it's up to you to be the only one who's going to really turn around and make it, I think that should be a red flag to anybody, you know, regardless of your own hubris and your own faith in your salesmanship, let's say, instead of hubris. Let's give it a positive spin and say your faith in your own salesmanship. You know, you should be able to do these things without, you know, the quote unquote tutelage of people like Jordan Belfort or Gary Vaynerchuk or whoever, because if you know how to do it, you know how to do it. You're basically just listening to these people spout off a bunch of buzzwords and motivational phrases that don't really amount to much.
You couldn't have said it any better. And the one thing we will say, if you do need that inspiration, though, don't give Jordan Belfort your money. He's the last person you should be giving it to. For real. Find someone else, because I will be honest with you, we'll probably never do business together if you're that person putting money in his pocket and learning from him, because he's a thief, ruined lives, and that is the kind of person that he is. Just because he had a cool movie based on him doesn't mean that he gets a free ride now to forgiveness. He's one of the last people that should be forgiven on the whole forgiveness train.
I don't feel like he's thoroughly vindicated himself.
Financial ruin to me is just as bad as murder. And I know that is like, well, you're still alive. But no, you can kill someone mentally, you can kill someone financially, and you can ruin the love that they have with their significant other. I mean, you know, he's caused divorces. You know that he stole and ruined kids' future that were going to college. Like he messed up college funds. Like, where there are so many people who, like, you know, what's that thing called where you make one life altering decision?
The butterfly
and it
effect.
Affects the butterfly effect. It's the Jordan Belfort effect. He was a butterfly effect in lives.
Sure.
And
I mean, you also got to look at it in terms of a capitalist society, right? And which is absolutely how Jordan Belfort looks at it. Your time is your money. The money that you have is a result of the time you've put in to the things that, you know, the work that you've done and everything else. I mean, like, you've traded your life for that money. And whether or not you want to look at it that way, in terms of a job, right? You're trading 8 hours of your life for money in return. And to swindle somebody out of that money that they worked, that they put in hours of their life to get, you know, to take that money and then use it for nefarious purposes with the intent of, you know, maybe they get it back, maybe they don't, and even playing fast and loose with it. I mean, that in a way is you're stealing a portion of a person's life by that. So I don't necessarily think that's the way society should operate, but that is how it operates now. And, you know, it's kind of like tipping, regardless of how you feel about it, you know, it is how it is. So in the meantime, while you're trying to change, you know, whatever aspect about it, it's something that you need to realize is the way it is right now. And to do that to somebody is very heartless.
Couldn't have said it any better. So, listeners, we wanted to go on a couple of other things, but I believe we are hitting our time here. So it looks like we'll get back to you with a couple of other great topics in the coming weeks. In the meantime, stand up for yourself. If you don't want to go back to the office, I believe you're not paid enough to go back to the office at this point. So demand more money. You're worth it. Tip more than 10%. In fact, at least tip 20%. And let's start this hashtag cancel Jordan Belfort again, because the guy shouldn't be relevant anymore. And he is all over LinkedIn and he still has followers. So it's time to remind everyone what he did.
Nope.
And
he's a con man.
He's not a good person.
It's high time that people like him, and it's not even necessarily just him himself. He's obviously a bad person. He's a good poster child for the type of person that is being paraded around as being a success story. And the truth is, he's not a success story. He made his success off the backs of the people that he swindled. And there are lots of people like him who are doing the same exact things as he is, but you have to start somewhere with an example. And he is a perfect example of what is wrong with the entrepreneurial culture and the hustle culture of today.
So with that, everyone, have a wonderful Sunday, and we'll
see you next week.
See you next week.
Do we have a guest next week?
Think so. I believe we'll get somebody on next week. By the way, I hope you all liked hearing my dad.
Yeah, that was crazy when Steve came to visit.
I know. We didn't even talk about how nuts it was that you found a way to contact the afterlife.
Maybe I'll go into the details of it in another episode.
That's a great idea. So, everyone, have a great Sunday. I think we will have an interview lined up for the following week, and we will
see you then, everybody. Thanks for listening to the show, and thanks for being a follower of us. And make sure you like us on Twitter
and subscribe to our YouTube channel.